meeting to order. If we could, please stand for the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions to the agenda?
We do. In addition to executive session, a discussion on the lease of school property. And the minutes from our workshop,
Not in executive session.
not in executive session.
Where's that go? The minutes go in, the
Just-
approval of minutes. Any other additions? May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th regular meeting and the workshop meeting of January 7th?
Moved.
Any discussion? I'd just like to say thank you guys for spending the time and for the principals for being there for our workshop. I think it was good for us to review. It was nice for us to hear what each other saw at the convention. And I do think it was worth our time, so I thank you for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? This brings us from 3.1 through 4.1. As recommended by the superintendent.
Moved.
Any discussion? The mileage reimbursement, it coincides with the IRS press release, so just noting that. All those in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to our nightlight. I think.
So Mark and I and Bill got together this week to talk a little bit. Chris was involved too with we might elect for a nightlight. And we had lots of options, and many of the options happened to be people that all kind of were under the umbrella of one organization. So we wanted to take this time to highlight the PTO, the amazing PTO that we have here at Hamilton. The PTO has been here since I've been here for 13 years. For a long time, Christy Murray and her husband Jim kind of shouldered much of the PTO and did a lot of the fundraising and coordination of events and much of that. About 2 or 3 years ago, there was a tremendous resurgence, and we have quite a few members of our PTO. It include community members, include teachers, many members. Tonight we have Ryan and Nicole with us from the board. They are officers, Vice President Ryan and Nicole, Secretary. There's so many other members of the PTO. Jed Chenard, Althea Brooks, who's also a teacher, Sarah Sparber, Amy Summers, Jackie Cleary, Jen Briggs is another teacher. I mentioned Carly before, Tara Lango, Julie Enks, Melissa Kasulis, Maura Tumulty, Sue Figueroa, Travis Ames, and Childress Moranti. And if you've been to a PTO meeting lately, there's quite a few members, so there's quite a resurgence. And we're so lucky to have them. I'm not sure if everyone knows some of all that they do for us, but they organize many events voluntarily, from book fairs, candy sales, or candle sales. They support our literacy. They're currently doing the HCS Reads program for both the elementary and the middle school, providing the books as well for those reads and the guidance. They've run PARP. They've collected box tops for years, and when I say collected box tops, that is a serious understatement. That involves the little box tops and counting them and turning them in for cash. The last 2 or 3 years, they've done luncheons for the faculty, both teachers and staff, and snacks, just welcome back snacks, sometimes welcome back to school. Very appreciative for that. They participate in everything from pumpkin walks and author visits. They provide scholarships for our students, money for field trips for our children, donations. They even do the balloons for our pre-K and K screening. So there are so many things that they do, and we are so grateful for them, the hard work, the volunteering, and thinking of teachers and children when they have very busy days as well too, and we're very appreciative of that. So, thank you, PTO.
Thank you.
Now you get to pose.
We only have one certificate. You guys get to
Come on up.
come on up here, both of you guys, if you would.
Oh,
Paparazzi.
I was thinking we should put our pictures of,
Oh, we could do that.
like all of our highlights.
It's just feel weird without Sheila.
I know, I just want to say Sheila is such a big part.
Photoshop.
I can Photoshop her in. Sure,
She
yeah.
is such a big part, yeah.
Aren't you supposed to hold up the thing?
You want
Come on,
to?
do you want me to?
There you
All
go.
right.
Just make sure Matt take the picture.
So everybody else who just looks at the pictures knows who they
Thank you.
represent.
Thank you guys so much. Please.
And Kathleen, too, she's not on our.
Yeah. Sheila's amazing.
Do you mind taking pictures of
Yeah, I can do that.
That brings us to our teacher presentation. They're getting ready in the back. Give you just a second.
I'll go back.
Hannah, are you going to stand back there, do you think?
I am.
Okay.
I can, yeah.
For whoever's speaking, if
Yeah.
you want to do the passage.
Sure.
It's right there.
Good evening. My name is Johanna Bozzard. I'm the ag teacher at Hamilton, and tonight I'm here to talk about my work-based learning curriculum work I did back over a long time ago, last July. That's the nod.
Oh, tired.
So, a quick overview of what is work-based learning and how it ties into our Hamilton Central School. Our current ag program is CTE certified, so that's Career and Technical Education certified through SED, through the State Education Department. So the technical word through SED of what work-based learning is it's the umbrella term, because there's many facets of work-based learning, but it's how to merge employers and students together to get students real-life, hands-on skills for future employment opportunities. So we use our work-based learning class as a part of our CTE accreditation, and students who have taken 3 previous agriculture classes with me, 9th through 12th grade year, then will continue in their 11th and 12th grade year in a course called work-based learning, which is essentially, with other things, their job shadowing component of the course. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about what the course looks like and how we structure it, and we have 2 of our students here today to share some of their experiences with you. So projects today, and what we start with in the beginning of the year, before we even talk about or we even step foot outside of our classroom, are lots of different things, but I put a few up here to highlight. We start with personality test and getting to know ourselves and what kind of people and learners and what type of working experience and environment we want to work in, what leadership style we think we are, and how do different leadership styles work together with each other. We start to match our interests, their interests, with potential careers. So these are all agricultural careers. There's 350 ag careers out there. So these students are interested in one of those or a multitude of those. We then branch into creating quality cover letters, resumes, and references, and what are references and who is a good reference and who is not, and why would we put that person or not put that person for certain types of jobs. We then talk about what are employers looking for employability skills, and that could vary from career to career depending on what the students are interested in. Financial awareness, because of course when they all graduate, they want a car and house and go on trips and fun things like that. But so just try to put that back into perspective of in their future what they wanted and how much money they're going to need to earn to have that lifestyle. Workplace safety. So there are laws obviously in place for keeping minors safe at work, for keeping us all safe at work. So what does OSHA say if we are under 18, if we're over 18, what can we do, what can we not do? What do we do when we're on a job shadow if we don't feel like we're safe? Go through all those things before we go out to shadow. And I said financial awareness twice. So talking about the job shadowing component a little bit. So what does job shadowing look like here at HCS? All of our students go out a minimum of 2 times per month. So every student's job shadowing looks different. A student who is interested in thinking they want to be an electrician is going to look a lot different than Jenna, who wants to go into the career with working with animals and veterinary medicine. So I try to send the students out when they're not going to miss school, but that obviously doesn't always happen. Jenna's done a lot of her, she'll talk to you about more, but a lot of them can be done on, like when we have breaks or long weekends or holidays, but some can't, and Kelvin will describe some of his to you and reasons that they can't, so those kind of things vary. The shadowing times vary depending on the person who they're going to shadow and when they would like them there and when they're done. When they get back from their job shadows the next day, they do a reflection. So for every person that they shadow or employer that they shadow, they do a reflection piece. What did I learn? What did I like? What did I not like? Can I see myself doing this career? And that stays on file with us here at HCS for 10 years. So I have a folder on each of the kids, and through SED we have to keep those kind of records for students for a minimum of 10 years. They, of course, send a handwritten thank you note to every employer, and then when they're at their work site, their employer does do an evaluation on them, a very basic evaluation of soft skills and punctuality and time management and asking questions and those kind of things that they get to see what the employer says and comments, and we talk about those kind of things as well as needed. So if you go back and go. I wanted to show you real quick. So each of the students we have 5 students in work-based learning this year. And all the students we have an Excel spreadsheet that's been created. So every student has different interests, clearly. So I have Jenna's pulled up here. And what it looks like is Jenna's interested in the field of animal science. So we start by brainstorming. When I say we, that looks like myself, contacts that I have or we have in the community. That looks like Jenna researching places that she thinks she might be interested in or someone might know. I send an email out to faculty and staff saying, I have students interested in X, Y, and Z careers this year. Do you guys have any great contacts that would welcome potential students to job shadow? And then we start gathering information. So, name, mailing address, email. Is there a good person that Mrs. Bozzard can contact when I'm calling to try to get Jenna into the Hamilton Animal Hospital? And then we keep track of who we've contacted, where, and when. So I start by making cold calls for all the students. So I make those calls, leave messages with secretaries, wait to get calls back. arrange times, what times works for certain people, what times don't, when should they be there, what should they be wearing. There's a plethora of paperwork that our students through SAD and through our CT certification have to have signed, obviously parent permission, permission from their guidance counselor, permission from their work-based learning coordinator, permission from their principals, and then we talk about transportation. So half and half of our students have transportation that they can provide, and then the other half, if they don't, that's our next piece. We fill out field trip request forms, and they do that part, speaking with Lauren in the bus garage, and we arrange transportation that way, and hope for no snow days and those kind of things. So once all that kind of stuff is done, this is just a way to keep track of the 5 of them and the 25, different places they're going. A lot of times I'll call and people will say, we'd love to have them, but I have a student who's interested in aquaculture. It's just really quiet time right now at the fish hatcheries. Can he come in April? So keeping track of all that kind of information and tentative dates that we set is just a really important way. And that's what these guys are responsible for, in between, obviously, all the other things that we're doing. So I brought 2 of them here today. They volunteered, actually, kind of, and they wanted to share some information and a few of the work-based learning sites that they have been to. But before they do, go back to my presentation and then go to Randy Posh in this lecture. The last. Yep. So additionally, in work-based learning, students in our CTE program get their high school senior English credit through this program. So right now we are focusing on, we started with a book called The Last Lecture by Randy Posh. And I love this book. This is one of my all-time favorite books ever. And it's a really great book without giving it away. But this man, Randy Posh, was a lecturer at Carnegie Mellon University. And he got terminal illness. He got cancer, and he died. But before he died, he was a lecturer. And at Carnegie Mellon, it's known in their school system as when professors are leaving and retiring, they give a last lecture. So you would give an in-person last lecture. He knew he wasn't going to live till retirement age. So he wrote his last lecture, things that he wanted his family, and he had 3 young children, all under the age of 5 before he died, something to remember him by. So, I think Guzman was talking about it. So he's an awesome writer, and he's clearly an awesome professor and a great lecturer. And there's he gave an hour-long lecture, having pancreatic cancer, very, very sick, that was awesome, and these guys will watch that at the end. But he also wanted to leave something for his kids to remember him by. So there's a whole series of activities that the students can reflect on after reading these. And I just threw 3 of them up here. I don't know, we're on like number 7 or 8. And one a week. They do one a week, and it's all things that spurs from this book. But what makes you unique? What are roles that you think are important and you define as important that you have right now, and what do they mean to you? What are your childhood dreams, and what are you doing to currently try to achieve those? So it's really like self-reflective. I think these guys are doing a great job with it, and then we talk about those kind of things in between. So every week one of those are due along with the other stuff they're doing for their job shadowing. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenna, who is going to share her job shadowing experiences with you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you guys have them. So professional.
Hi, my name is Jenna Rogers. I'm a junior here at Hamilton, and I'm going to share my work-based experiences with you. So my whole life has kind of been based around agriculture. My dad was raised on a dairy farm, so he kind of raised me with that intention. But as I got older, I geared my education towards the animal science field, which has always been a passion of mine. And the idea of helping animals has always been a strong appeal to me. As I researched more careers in the animal science field, I fell in love with veterinary technology, which was kind of the best of both worlds for me. So in my high school career, I joined FFA. I'm currently in my 3rd year of FFA. and I signed up for as many animal science classes or science classes as I possibly could. I'm the chapter treasurer. This is my second year now. I've been a member for 3, and FFA has taught me a lot of life lessons, and it's also given me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I'm very thankful for that. Some classes that I've taken that have been my absolute favorites are pre-vet science, small animal care, and as well as like biology and life sciences. So can you click on resume and cover letter for me? So my resume and cover letter are both based around the career of veterinary technology. So the one at the bottom is my resume. So it just goes into my objective and my summary of my grades and things I'm interested in. Work experience, keep going down, there's my education, which is obviously just high school. My volunteer service, all my sports and everything I'm part of. My FFA awards, some special skills, and some athletic and all the leadership conferences I've gone to in my FFA career and different events I've been to. And then my references, Mrs. Bothard and Mr. Darrow. Yeah, we worked with Ms. Daoud, and we used the Naviance website to create them. And then my cover letter, again, is based around veterinary technology. And I went into more about FFA and all my favorite classes and things like that. And then at the bottom, there's just more about the animal science field and why it's important and how it's constantly growing, and the need for workers in the field is at a high demand. My agricultural experiences. So this just goes to more in depth. I have a few pictures here of my favorite classes. So I'm taking horticulture this year, which isn't what I want to go into, but it's something I enjoy nonetheless. At the bottom here, that's one of my many chickens that I care for and pay for all by myself. My newest addition, my beloved crested gecko. And then one of my favorite experiences in small animal care, which was actually being able to draw blood from a live goat, which is pretty cool. So yeah, animals are kind of my life here at school and at home. So that's just more about my animals. And moving on to my actual job shadowing experiences, I've been on 4 so far, but I'm going to share my 3 most important and key ones. So my first one was at the Morrisville Equine Rehab Center. I was there while they had their students doing a lab, so I got to see the students actually perform the rehabilitation treatments. So in this first picture, this horse is receiving a Magna wave treatment, which is basically really tiny electric shocks that are sent into muscles, and it helps them heal and strengthen them. A lot of them are race horses or anything like that, or ones that had surgery, so they're repairing their muscles and things like that. And the one down here had a laceration on his left front leg, and he's in the rehab to finish healing and then build up his muscle. So this job shadowing was an important one for me because I wasn't totally set on if I wanted to go into small animal or large animal and focus on, but after I loved seeing the science and the medical aspects of it, but I definitely realized that I want to head into small animals. It's just more what I'm comfortable of. And then scroll down to the last one. Keep going. Yes. So this one was more recent. I went to the Stephen Swans Humane Society in New Hartford. And while I was there, I actually got to see live procedures done and surgeries, spays and neuters. And it was really cool to see actually what a vet tech does in a shelter situation. And also being able to see a surgery and seeing if that's kind of what I was okay with and that I could handle that for my future. I also got to see basic treatments like heartworm treatments. And one of the most important things I learned there is that they always kept telling me that vet techs do so much different things when it comes to shelters and clinics. So for my next job shadowing, I went to the Hamilton Vet Clinic to see the differences between their jobs. And while I was there, half the day I saw more surgeries. So I got to see another neuter, a mass removal, and then a dental cleaning, which was really cool to see. And then the second half of the day, I actually got to go in and shadow the exams that were going on and office visits. So I definitely liked the clinical aspect of it. I'm definitely someone who likes variety in my life, and at a shelter, it's spays and neuters, and that's about it. But at a clinic, it's a bunch of different things, and I like the variety of that. So it was definitely an important one for me to see. They were both really helpful in narrowing down my decision, but I definitely like the vet clinic aspect better. Just the variety was more fitting for my lifestyle, I think. But they were both really helpful. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer them. Yes.
Do you have other shadows already set up?
Yes.
So what's coming up?
Later this month, on the 20th, I'm going to Colgate at their lab, and they do a bunch of research on mice there, so I'm getting a different perspective of kind of a different aspect of animal science. So
What
that'll
about
be cool.
February with Dee and who you're going to ride with?
Oh, yeah. In February, we're trying to schedule a ride-along with an animal cruelty officer, just another aspect of the animal science industry, so that should be cool.
And tell her what you asked me, you're going to shadow, but you don't know if there's any specific hospitals for it today.
Oh, I'm really interested, as you see, I've had geckos, so I'm really interested in exotic animals, so I want to see that aspect as well, because that might be something I'm also interested in exploring.
Is a vet tech a certificate, a 2-year, a 4-year, and more than 4-year?
There's two different, there's associates and a bachelor's, but I plan on getting my bachelor's.
Tell them what programs you visited on when you did your 10th grade thing.
Well, I'm looking, there's 3 schools in state that have the 4-year. It's a pretty new program, but right now I'm looking at SUNY Canton as my #1 option, and I really like the school and the program's really good. It's also small enough that you get on like hands-on activities for that too, so looking forward to that. And now we have Kelvin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm actually not going to use this because if you know me well enough, most people will say I'm loud and sometimes too loud. But my name is Kelvin Reynolds. I'm a senior here in Hamilton. Unlike Jenna, I did not grow up around animals or farms. I'm from Monticello, which is 2.5 hours downstate. So no, when I first got here, I did not know what a cow looked like in person. It's kind of funny. So this year, while I'm in this class, I want to look into a career in ag education or education in general. So I'm kind of borderline with physical education or ag education. So I don't go to vets or different farms or anything. I go to schools, which is why Ms. Posh was saying earlier. Sometimes I can't shadow on the weekend or during breaks because there's no school on weekends or over breaks. So I've been to multiple schools so far, and I've really enjoyed it. Can you go to my cover letter, Jenna? So at the beginning of the year, as Ms. Posh was saying, we all had to do our own cover letter. Mine, I think, is addressed to the first shot I went to, which is Miss Smith over at Stockbridge School. So as it says, I'm applying to take a shadow position at your school to watch and understand how other people spread their knowledge of agriculture to students. So I'm also an officer. I'm the sentinel for our chapter this year. This is my first year doing it. I've been a part of FFA for 3 years now. My first year here, though, wasn't so strong because I was still uncertain of what FFA actually meant. So my second year here, I got a little more involved. I went to nationals last year. I went to a couple conferences. I went to 212 360 Leadership Conference, and it opened up my eyes towards agriculture a lot. Because if you would have asked me 3 years ago what agriculture or FFA was, I would have looked at you with a blank stare and said, I have no clue what you're talking about. So my cover letter is based on education. Did you get my resume? Now, this is probably the hardest thing I've done all year. Being a senior, not a lot of classes. So, Ms. Bozzard wants us to do our best. She doesn't want us to, do things the halfway. She wants to do things the best of our abilities. So, I wanted to go in and do this and say, yeah, I've done this and this and this. So I tried to put the bare minimum in it. And Ms. Bozzard, I learned that sometimes that's not always going to work. So I had to go through and actually dig deep to find a lot of stuff that I've done. So if you look, I've been in FFA since September of 2018. Basketball, some of my awards, my FFA Green Hand. some of my skills in academic achievements, leadership. I'm an FFA officer. And then, if you notice, all my references are physical education teachers, or, well, Coach Blackford should be in there somewhere. He's not. Because at the beginning of the year, I was leaning more heavily towards physical education and coaching. But as the year has gone on and I've gone out and shadowed teachers, it's really up in the air for me. So I'm not sure if I want to go into education, but this has been helping me a lot decide if I want to. Can you go to my shadowing experiences? Okay, so as I said before, I only go to different schools because there's not much that I can do to learn about education besides watching other teachers. So I've only seen Miss Bajda as an ag teacher for the prior 2 years. So I've only noticed how she teaches. And what this has done, going to other schools, is it's helped me understand how other teachers teach, dealing with different bell schedules, lengths of days, lengths of classes, different students, the atmosphere of schools. So my first shadowing experience I went to was November 15th, was at Stockbridge, and I went to shadow Mrs. Smith. So over at Stockbridge, they have their own sugar house, which we don't have here. So they have a bunch of property with their own maple trees, and they tap their own trees, and they produce their own different type of maple products. They do cotton candy, as you see, maple candies. That shouldn't be there. So I got to do this, which would we filled the trays and made the actual maple candies. We got to spin the cotton candy. So I thought that was cool. So what I really noticed at Stockbridge was, this is where I learned that there's different ways of teaching. So I think everybody knows Ms. Buzzard. She's very, very organized and has to know where everything is, exact dates and times. The teacher I shadowed over at Stockbridge is a little different. It works for her, but she's a little different, and I was like, Miss Buzzard would lose her mind if she wasn't here. But it works.
The first thing you said when you got back, you would lose your mind over that.
Yes, you would. But it really, because yes, I can see myself teaching, but I don't think I can see myself teaching the exact same way Miss Buzzard does. So it just taught me, there are different ways of teaching the same material. Over here, this is another teacher, Mr. Perry, over at Madison, who is completely different than Miss Buzzard. So I went over there, and Madison, their schedules are completely different than ours. They have block schedules all morning, and then single periods all day, the rest of the day. So Mr. Perry told me his main thing was, so he doesn't get to see all of his kids every day of the week. Sometimes he'll see them 2 days a week, sometimes he'll see them 3 days a week because of how their schedule works. So what I went over there and learned was scheduling and planning for the day or for the week. So, if Miss Bodger sees kids every day, I see her 4 times a week. Mr. Perry does not have, that choice to see his kids 4 days a week. So he has to schedule differently. But it taught me, how to get things done in the time frame that you have to work with. Also, so this was, this also opened my eyes to the level of teaching. So Ms. Buzzard is the only person here who teaches ag. Most of the schools I've been to have at least 2 ag teachers. So Mr. Perry teaches 3rd through 10th grade. And we were talking about this yesterday, actually. Jen was talking about having to put a cat down, and I said, well, I guess my misfortunes are having to deal with 3rd graders. So it taught me that I do not want to teach younger kids if I had the option to. I like to work with older kids. And then if you go down to my last one, this is my most recent one. I went over to CAS. I didn't take any pictures because this was a more hands-on experience. So I went over there and I actually so Miss Millen, she is more hands-on with her students. Like Miss Bodger, when Miss Bodger teaches us, she'll show us how to do it and explain it to us, but she lets us do it on our own. Miss Millen is more hands-on. She wants you to get the best understanding possible, and she will show you step by step how to do it and make sure you understand every single step of what you're doing. So I thought it was just another way of opening my eyes about how to teach. So instead of showing kids the simple way or, you know, the broader idea of how to do something. She went more in depth because that's how it was her best way of getting out to her students and her best way of explaining it. So, but basically, yeah. So going out has taught me a bunch of different ways to teach. Mainly, you know, it's not like who Jenna who goes out and, you know, she wants to do smaller or larger animals. You know, I guess you can relate it to older and younger kids. I don't want to do younger children. But overall, it's been a really good experience for me. Like I told you before, you know, if you would ask me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have told you I knew what FFA was. And now I'm really passionate about agriculture. Yeah.
You want to tell them where you're planning on going in the next couple months?
Oh, okay, so some of my future, so I'm still going to schools. I'm lining up a shadow now over at Sherburne with Miss Chapetta. Their ag program is actually new, I think last year, 2 years old. So it's going to be interesting to see how those kids are also not as, you know, familiar with agriculture or FFA. So it's going to be interesting to see how kids who are more in my situation, who don't understand it as much as someone like Jenna would, or somebody who's taken other classes with Miss Bozzard or here. So I think that's going to be interesting for me to understand teaching newer kids. So if I were to go back and teach at my old school, you know, ag, none of those kids there would understand either. So it's a way of teaching kids who don't understand. Then I'm going to Mr. Bugby at VBS. Mount Markham. I like him. I met him last year at Nationals, and he was an interesting guy. He kind of reminds me of myself. You know, he's loud, likes to joke. He can be serious, but not really. So I think it's going to be interesting to learn somebody who's more personally like myself. But that's really it. So thank you. Any questions? No?
Are you, well, wait, so you're a senior?
Yes.
So what about next steps?
This is what this is helping me to decide. So I'm in the process of applying to colleges. So most of the right now I've only applied to SUNY Brockport and SUNY Cortland for the physical education field. I haven't really decided. I'm still looking into where I would go because I've just recently, you know, decided that I want to possibly pursue ag. So I'm still looking into colleges that I would go to for ag. SUNY Cobleskill is a good one that I'm thinking about looking into. Morrisville.
Obviously basketball is important to you.
And then, yeah, so it's trying to get all those things together. But yeah, so any other questions?
Did you get any good advice that from all the different people you talked to?
Actually, yeah. So Miss Millen told me back to Miss Bozzard, you know, she goes, I'm kind of messy and, you know, all sprawled out. It is always easy when you're organized and you know where things are and what you're going to do. She kind of is on the spot, but it works for her, and I thought that was interesting. Mr. Perry, he said, if you have the choice, stay away from the little kids. Because sometimes I can't even really say anything big about that because I don't have a large attention span either. Miss Millen, you know, she says if you're passionate about it, do it. But you know, she also told me if it's not something that you're strong in, you know, it is something that is difficult to teach because it's something that not everybody is like. Math is something that everybody should understand at some point. You know, there's math in everyday life. Not everybody lives with agriculture, you know, in their everyday life. So if you're not passionate about it, it's not something that is easy to teach to people who may not be as passionate about it as you are. And that's also something they all kind of relate to, you know, it's hard teaching kids who don't want to learn agriculture. But that's really it on advice. Any other questions?
All right, any other questions for me?
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.
That brings us to community participation. Anybody would like to step forward? you may do so, please remember the 3-minute timeline. Okay. That moves us on to new business. I need a motion to accept the resignation for retirement purposes for Mary Ann Matthews as a science teacher, effective June 30th, 2020, with sincere appreciation for her 30 years to the district.
Second.
Wish her the best in her retirement.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Appointments. We have a motion to approve Lisa Nagel and Jessica Welsh, to the substitute list as recommended by the secondary principal and superintendent.
I'll move.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We need a motion to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
Second.
I don't think I was first.
No.
So you're first.
I thought I heard
I
somebody
said
say
wrong.
Mary, Mary.
Yeah, I can't second.
She owned and you seconded, so.
Oh, you just said
I
oh,
I was
okay.
gonna keep talking and I meant to say there should be no discussion unless it's an executive session. All those in favor?
Wait, who did it second?
Corey and Harry.
Okay.
And my messed it up. Motion to accept the monetary donation of $2,852 from the Hamilton Emerald Foundation with sincere appreciation as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That breaks down for the drone t-shirts, food, backpack project, and self-care kit. All those in favor?
Aye.
A motion to approve the following capital project bid awards is recommended by King and King and the superintendent.
I'll move.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I asked Bill, I don't understand what alternate means. Each of the different contracts has a base bid and an alternate, and I just want to understand what the word alternate means.
So if you recall, when the original scope of the project, there was some uncertainty as to really when it came to the roof, how much of the roof we would be able to do in phase one. So when we carved up the project into various phases, initially phase one was all of the mechanical work, all of the heating and ventilating, and I believe it was some 55% perhaps of the roof to start. So the base bid was going back 18 months when the project first came to be. With conservative estimates, it was estimated that perhaps 55% would be the base bid for the roof. Each alternate, you'll notice there were 6 alternates for
Right.
roofing. The other contractors, the alternates were minuscule. Each of those alternate bids under the roofing contract is for an additional section of roof. And we're happy to report that with favorable bidding conditions and with these bids, all of those alternates are included. We'll be able to do the entire roof in phase one. So the alternates for the other contractors, I believe there's just one, for the general contractor point. Those are minor pieces of work that correspond to those additional pieces of roof that will be done.
Okay.
So ultimately what this means, which is great news, is that it's all of the mechanical work in phase one that was always a priority, and all of the roof in phase one, which will be the summer of 2020. So it's all good news in that. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in my report. So.
Other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a second reading. I need a motion to adopt the AMSCO Advanced Placement Edition World History Modern textbook as recommended by the teacher, principal, and superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion? This is the book.
Is there an electronic form
Yeah.
of it as well, or is it only, it's just a paper book?
Just a paper book.
Is it Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Jeff Snyder. Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to the administrators' reports, and we might as well start right.
Thank you. So back to the capital project, with those bids that were just approved, Debbie will be sending out the bid confirmation letters to the contractors tomorrow. And then we'll go through the necessary steps with assurances and with our insurance agent. And now that we have contractors, we will really start to ramp up. So coming up with a plan for construction. Anything that we can do prior to the school being vacant for the summer in terms of kids and instructional programs, we will look to do. It is a challenge though, because it is, most of the work is the very important infrastructure with mechanical work and roofing. But if there are pieces of the project or parts of the building that we can do, for example, our offices, if we have to go somewhere else for 2 months so they can get in here earlier, we will certainly do that. Over breaks, that kind of thing, weekends. So the fact that we were able to get the whole roof into this one phase is, and this is according to the architects, it makes sense. It's very beneficial because we know we don't have to bid it out again. We have the same contractor and it's all going to be done at one time. So it really is great news. So with those approved bids, with contingency built in of 7%, working with Paul, that's a safe number. You're going to find things when you start peeling things back. And then all of the incidental costs that were originally budgeted, legal, architects, printing, supplies, all that stuff. It came within budget of sort of that allowance of what we could do with, in terms of tax levy impact in the 21-22 school year. We actually still have a little bit of wiggle room in that sense. So as I kind of segue to budget, one of the things that we're going to be doing, we started to have conversations. There's some initiatives that we wanted to get done here in the building that we've really been sort of knocking our head against the wall, trying to figure out the best way to do it, whether it's through the Smart Bond initiative, whether it's utilizing some E-rate federal funding that we are able to get refunded through BOCES. It's our security, some of our security cameras, door access, and phones in the building. We're in the process of seeing if we can squeeze this into phase 1 of the project, which would really be fantastic, because then we could do it again summer of 2020, do it while there's, ceilings are out, walls are peeled back. So, and the other reason that's important is because then what that ultimately could do long term, and Chris and I have a ton of conversations, it frees up the Smart Bond money for phase 2 that we can then apply to instructional hardware, which then frees up potentially money in the general fund budget or allows us to do more with what's allocated in the budget. So a lot of moving parts. We're in the process of finding out just how much we can squeeze in there. So we've got some pretty solid quotes from a couple of vendors for all of those things that would really, fingers crossed that we can get all that capital work done with the technology upgrades over the summer. And come September, it'd be major upgrades in the building. So that's pretty much it for the capital project. Now, as far as the budget, Bill and I gave you a pretty extensive report on environmental factors, that kind of thing. Last month, I don't have a formal report for you this month. We've had our initial meetings with department heads, and put them to task to come up with lists of needs and wants, with consideration of what we're currently doing moving forward to next year. Our tax cap calculation, I've started to work on that. It's not looking like a great year for us in terms of what our allowable levy will be. Harry, I think a few months back you had asked about the statewide CPI, if there was any indication what that was going to be. I think it's going to be actually below 2%. I may have said 2% at the time, but we haven't gotten the official figure. that's an important factor. So the baseline for all schools, the starting point is actually the lesser of 2% or that number. So it looks like we're going to be starting below 2. Each school district has their district-specific tax-based growth factor. We've had very minimal growth in our tax base in the last year, so that's actual physical additions. Our capital levy, without the new debt coming into play next year, is basically stagnant. So with that said, I anticipate it being right around 2% will be our allowable levy increase, which is lower than it's been in years past, which is a challenge. So, you know, as far as what's going on with the state, the governor delivered his State of the State address yesterday. Bill and I were going to watch it. We then read online, there was a list of probably 24 initiatives that sort of teased that he was going to talk about, and not one of them was really relevant to public education. So we decided there was probably better use of our time. So we did not watch it. We're starting to get emails with summaries, and as we expected, there really wasn't any big ticket items pertaining to public education in New York State in the address, which has really been the norm the last couple of years. He touched on a couple of things that he has in the past, after school programs, expanding pre-K, school safety. Many of these initiatives, it's anticipated will be through a grant process, which does not bode well for us. Talked about equitable funding. A lot of that talk centers around specific school districts. In most cases, larger school districts where there's inequities in funding within school buildings within the same district. So we have to do this transparency reporting. So his actual budget is due, I think, the 21st of January. That's usually when we know sort of that number of that increase in education funding, and then shortly thereafter, the aid run, what it means for specific districts. So, you know, unfortunately, it's, you know, the news isn't great. It's sort of more of the same. So we're moving forward, and keep you in tune as we move forward. So.
I looked his address up online and then did a control find and just typed in school. Didn't find anything that was related to school, so if you guys are looking, I mean, you can read the whole address obviously, but I was specifically looking today for anything related to schools, and that was the easiest way to do it. So,
I sent you NISBA's.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll add a few things that Matt didn't touch that from a
but, I mean,
curriculum standpoint.
you don't care to read the whole thing, but you want to learn about any piece of the school that Matt didn't touch on, what she touched on most of it.
Yep.
So that was the easy way to get into that document.
I had a couple of questions for you that, while everybody's here, I think it's useful for everybody, but having gone to at NISBA, the NISBA convention of Foundation Aid, they mentioned 2 issues with state funding being pegged to old data, specifically poverty count and regional cost index. I'm wondering
What was the second one?
Regional cost index.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if those were to be updated, is that something that would be favorable for our district?
Probably not, because of our decline in enrollment. It's hard to say, because I would have to look into more. I don't know exactly how those factors are, you know, where they fall in the formula and to what extent they're factored in. In an absolute general sense, when you talk about the formula that's being used, it dates back to 2007. And based on that formula, about two-thirds of the districts in New York State are underfunded based on that formula. So what that formula back then said they should get in 2019, they're getting less. A third of the districts are getting more, and we're fall into that category of the third. And that tends to be the districts that have had declining enrollment and increased wealth, or steady wealth. You know, we've been relatively steady. So I don't know. I know. You know, poverty counts. I don't know if that's based on free and reduced lunch. I don't know maybe based on census data, which isn't
Yeah,
updated
that's
as
what it is.
frequently, so,
Yeah.
when.
So he told us it was based on the 2000.
2000 census, yeah. So, based on that, you would think, yes, it would help. But, to what extent, I have no idea.
Okay, thanks.
And I don't, you hear people talk about the formula all the time. I think it's, as soon as somebody has an idea or has a formula that might work, you know about it, but I don't know.
Mark?
Thank you.
Yeah, so, about 2 more weeks and we'll be into the second semester already, so time is flying. And the counselors have been meeting with groups of students. They're starting to look at their schedules for next year, and that's gonna help us in, creating those initial class lists, looking at numbers and what we'll need in order to provide for our students. So looking at ways, different ways to be efficient, but continue to provide access to different curricula for our students. Right before break, we had Tim Collins come in. He had his performance. They seem to be well received. It's all based on bullying, and he plays a bunch of different characters, which I explained before. But he also includes the tech side of it as well. It's you're not necessarily hiding behind. You don't want to be somebody that's behind a screen saying things that normally you wouldn't be saying to people. PTO this week, we had the reveal of the book that the middle school students received. So we're very thankful to PTO for all their work on that. And as Kevin was saying, with all the work PTO does, as a parent of 2 kids in the district, I appreciate everything they're doing just as much. Next week, we also have another assembly coming in, and this one we'll be talking about texting and driving to our 9th and 12th graders. And since our last meeting, that's about it.
How was the follow-up? Can we have to do some follow-up on the forum versus homeroom?
Yep, so I met with the committee, and we're creating the survey that's going to go out to teachers and students. And we're thinking, so 2 weeks the semester's over, so that we'll give it to them then and follow up from there.
How long have you been doing the new way?
Right now, it's probably,
Since Thanksgiving, right?
yeah, so
Around.
we may have had 2 full weeks though.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe three full weeks.
The wheels haven't completely fallen off, so that's good.
No, we've adapted and students they're good. They're good. Very good.
Okay.
Not much to report on the technology team. Matt kind of stole my thunder there a little bit. Is that right, though? We've been working a lot on, meeting with vendors and trying to get the security project off the ground. Like to again echo the common sentiment about the PTO. I've been working with their leadership team, put together a website for their HCS Reads, which is linked to our website now. That's about it.
So, yeah, as Mark mentioned, on Tuesday we had our HES Reads Assembly. Kathleen Catania came down and helped us do the assembly with the kids. Revealed the book Boy Called Bat, and we're off and reading, and some of you are reading at home, which is great. Excited about that, to have something that we're all doing a common talking point. Next week we have 2 Colgate HCS events, partnerships. We'll be going to the women's basketball game at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, and the women's hockey game at 11 on Friday. So, pretty good day events. Those are really fun for the kids and for a lot of our students. They're probably be the only experiences they'll have to do something like that. So it's fun and good for the Colgate kids too. They don't often get a packed house. Not just us, it's also schools from all over. If you've been there, it's very loud. It's fun. And it's the first time we've been to a hockey game too. We're excited about that. Positivity Project has got together. We're planning out our next community event on January or school community event. On January 27th, half day, we are doing a physical education event where we're all doing activities together in the gym. The words for that week is perseverance, and the following week is encouraging others when they struggle. So we will concentrate on those two character traits and with all the activities that we do. We'll have built-in stuff so that kids will be having fun, but also learning about perseverance and encouraging others that are struggling. We're also going to try to attempt to promote and communicate the Positivity Project to families at home. We are going to have a Facebook presence where each week Linda's going to upload a newsletter to parents about the word of the week. It will be on our Facebook. Chris has also promised to push that out once a week to families so that they have that as well too. We also put together a calendar of upcoming, like all the words throughout the rest of the year so that you can follow along at home. There's also activities on the letter that you can do at home with your kids too, so that we're doing it as an entire community. Yeah, I mean, we're busy too, working on schedules for next year, believe it or not. We've got 3 weeks left in the semester, and you know, it sounds pretty strange to be talking about that now, but if you're going to change schedules and add programs or change programs, you have to think that far ahead in advance. So, particularly with our special education department, with IEPs and annuals, what we write on those and how kids, how we help kids with strategies. This definitely has a lot to do with the programs that we offer. So those are happening now. So we actually have to talk about schedule now and try to have that ready in the next month for what it's going to look like next year. So it's an exciting time of the year because you know, each year you go into scheduling thinking, oh, we should have did that instead of the other thing. And one of the things the Positivity Project we talked about is, well, we don't have a common time when we can all get together maybe once a week, so we're going to try and build that into our schedule for next year.
We'll bring this to 8.2, Bill.
So at our workshop, we had talked about social emotional learning, and we had the opportunity at the NISBA convention to hear Mark Brackett, and I mentioned that he was coming to the region. So this is information about his appearance. For those of you who don't know, Mark Brackett is from the Yale Social Emotional Intelligence Lab, I guess, for what you will. And he is the founder of the Ruler program, which is a social emotional pre-K through 8 program that he has developed, and we talked about at our workshop. So we have the opportunity to, as a region, to hear him and hear more about his program. So that's information on that. SED released their building condition survey information. We are scheduled in 2022 to have our full building condition survey conducted. In the meantime, we are required to have a visual inspection, so BOCES will do that. Jack Ingressano from BOCES will come and do a visual inspection at no cost to the district, so that'll be good. So that'll be conducted in 2020. Just a couple other things to add about the governor's state of state. Some things that he has in his handbook that he proposed yesterday concerning curriculum. He's going to propose development of a new school curriculum to teach students about civic values and America's heritage of religious freedom. Although in his book he didn't put any details of how that will be presented or what that'll look like, so more to come on that. He also is proposing a comprehensive package to protect youth from tobacco products, and he's proposing to ban the sale of flavored nicotine vaping products, restricting vaping ads targeted at young people, and limiting the online sale of vaping products and other actions. So that's very good to hear. He's proposing an increase in funding for, as we talked about, pre-K, after-school programs, AP and IB waivers, fee waivers, and master teacher professional development. He's also proposing funding to encourage students to become bilingual teachers, and for a new grant program to school districts to support local student mental health initiatives. So those are all embedded, I think, that are very positive And as Matt said, there's little talk about how he's going to close the $6.1 million budget gap. Billion dollar, I'm sorry, budget gap. So more to come on that. We are signed up to view the webinar on the 21st as far as his budget proposal, so there'll be more information coming. Thank you.
Steering team updates? Cory?
We had a snow day for ours, so.
Ours was canceled as well.
All right, well, there you go. So, Emerald Foundation update.
There's nothing beyond the fact that you started early, so I think they gave us money for 3 things.
PTO update. Nothing other than the book. That's
Just the book.
pretty big.
That's pretty big.
It
Yeah,
is.
so that's amazing.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for that, Magna. 8.6, Bill. Village of Hamilton.
Yes, so the Village of Hamilton has reached out to us for permission again to allow the deer harvest program to take place on our school property. In the past, we've allowed this with conditions that we have presented to you. In the past, we have had 2 employees that we've granted permission that did not take advantage of the program, or participate, I should say. This year, there's 2 village employees, Village of Hamilton employees that would like to participate. So in the conditions are laid out, and we have very clear conditions that they need to adhere to. So they're asking if we would again approve their allowing them to participate in the deer harvest program on our school property.
Bill, if you don't mind, just to
Yeah.
clarify, it's not the property in general, there's this designated spot on this rear back corner that's concealed, you can't even see it, it's in the woods, where there's a
Plot.
plot, yeah, that they, so it's not, there's not hunters walking.
Yeah, it's not on our property. Yeah, we're not gonna have people in camo with bows on our property. So
Only
walking
certain
around.
times of day too, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
and
when
that's
they're-
when Bill speaks of the conditions,
Yeah.
we've made it very clear that, you know, there's to be no interference with the instructional process or attendance of school, so.
So how come we don't want the deer, the first deer?
What would you like to do with it?
I assume that either ag or the cafeteria will make jerky.
Maybe we can arrange
It would
that.
have to be non-school sponsored.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
So that was just information?
Yes.
Okay. Ellen, the BOE governance manual?
Yeah, so I started, so for those who don't know, one of the board's goals for themselves this year was to create what's been referenced in some of the NISBA literature as a governance manual. It's sort of a how to be a board member manual, so that as new board members come on, helping to explain jobs, duties, contact information, people, educational opportunities. It's actually a huge thing once it's all put together, but it was something we all agreed would be helpful for us and somebody new. So I don't think we need to do anything with it tonight, because we actually have another meeting later this month that will be a board workshop. So again, open to the public, but it's really a work session for us to work through some of the details of this. And there were just, there were gonna be a couple of asks from other people, but I think I'll wait for that until we do that later this month, and maybe there won't be all that much to ask. So.
Okay. That brings us to 9.0, which is community participation. If you so choose, you may come up front. Please remember this 3-minute timer. And with that, Bill, we have no vote.
We have no vote.
With that, we are going to adjourn to executive session to discuss the employment history of particular individuals and the lease of school property. I will need a motion in a second, but there will be no voting after that. You are more than welcome to stay, but you do not need to, if you're doing any business afterwards besides closing the meeting. So may I have a motion to move to executive session?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a gavel or something.
First, your workshop, everybody. That's the governance manual.
It's the